everybody. So I work at a company called Globescan, and we are a global research and strategy consultancy that help clients assess their reputation and their impacts, and basically understand the implications of market research on corporate social responsibility and sustainability. And I'm going to be talking about millennials and sustainability today. And so why this talk? As you can see from this diagram, there's a discrepancy basically between how millennials see themselves and how other people see millennials. And this is one thing that always has been a little frustrating for me as a millennial woman myself, and just feeling like, as many millennials will probably tell you, we're misunderstood. But what I've kind of learned through looking at some of the research out there on millennials is whether the common stereotypes and assumptions about millennials are myth or truth really depends on how you look at it. And a lot of the research out there really does not get to the context and the nuance that is often very important in studies like this. So first off, one of the myths, millennials are apathetic. And that's one way to look at it. You could also look at it as we are just frugal with our intention. And maybe apathy is a sign of inaccessibility, and maybe we are just seeking a better way to participate in the world around us. Some people say that millennials, because we grew up in a time period where there was a huge economic recession, there was kind of a weakening of the social contract between companies and their employees, rise of technology that gives us information at our fingertips, has caused us to kind of be very critical and skeptical of these establishment institutions. Maybe that might be one of the things, but I also agree with Mackenzie here that we also don't want to be patronizingly singled out. And perhaps some of these things that affected the world didn't just affect millennials. Secondly, millennials are narcissistic, and there's a lot of research out there that shows that we are socially wired and we're highly social beings. But why is that a bad thing, especially to sustainability and social impact, right? There's research that shows that we definitely seek a lot of connection and approval. But the fact that we like to engage in groups, like this research from the Boston Consulting Group, that can be a great thing for our causes, and the fact that we can have critical mass in order to further our sustainability causes. Third, millennials are entitled. That's one way to look at it, or another way is maybe we're just the ultimate optimists and we want it all. We are solutions oriented, we're multitasking, and we are basically envisioning something more. And are we really entitled for wanting a better future that's more sustainable? And as proven by some of the Deloitte research out there now, that we are really looking for the foundation of long-term sustainability. So my take on this all is that this might all be beside the point. As I was doing research and preparing this presentation, I realized that I don't want to belabor the point of who millennials are, because I'm sure you've all heard a lot about that already. And instead, I'm offering a hypothesis that maybe we should look at some of this research that talks about millennials, but understand the bigger shifts in society and across the global population that is more important and has implications beyond just one age group. After all, the economic collapse, the uncertainty of the last years, and the rise of technology is not something that only has impacted our young people. It's impacted us all. And these shifts are really important for us to understand as sustainability practitioners, because I have a feeling that we have not taken advantage of this captive audience very well so far. And we have not fully utilized this information to our benefit. So Globescan, being a research consultancy, we've identified 5 megatrends through our several years of global public opinion research and stakeholder research, many of it stemming from 2001. And I'm going to go through this real quickly. First off, Polarized the World. So our research from 2001 has shown that there's differing perspectives across the world about whether our world is actually going in the right direction. And we have data that shows this polarization since 2001 between some of the more developed countries in the world and versus the less developed countries in the world. We've also been tracking net trust in institutions for a long time, and we've been seeing that the organizations with the most power are actually the least trusted, oftentimes globally. National government, global companies, press, and media. And that's a little concerning. We also have looked at what are the drivers of perceptions of companies, and we've asked people to rate companies based on a number of attributes, and through statistical analysis have derived the importance of these attributes on people's perceptions. And what we found is that transparency is the number one driver to rebuild this trust, but companies are definitely underperforming in this area. We've also asked people, tried to gauge the supply and demand of purposeful companies, like whether people want purposeful companies versus whether they can actually name a purposeful company. And we found that there's a huge gap between the supply and demand. And ultimately, the last point I want to talk about is the rise of the aspirationals. And this is what I want to focus on for the rest of the presentation, because the idea is that we've done a lot of research that has identified this interesting segment called aspirationals that is different from traditional marketing segmentation, where before I think sustainability really focused on the deep green consumer. And the issue with that is that this deep green consumer, it's the 22% advocates, is a very small amount of the market, and they don't have the influence to really move mass markets. What we found instead is by studying people's needs, wants, values, and tribal inclinations, we've identified 40% aspirationals globally that have high environmental and social values, but also high materialism. So it means that they are super consumers, but they actually want to support sustainable and socially important causes through their purchases, which is kind of, you'd think that those are like binary decisions, but our research is showing it's not. And this population of aspirationals is across the world present, and it's actually more present in emerging economies as well, which makes it interesting for the future of our work, for sure. So what we think is, rather than grouping people by just age, like millennial or non-millennial, it's better to group people by their self-identified beliefs, desires, and values, especially if we want to create that critical mass for the sustainable products and the clean technologies that we want. What we found is that 38% of aspirations are millennials, but most of them are non-millennials. And also, interesting enough for this group, the majority of aspirationals are female. This is very exciting. And the last graph also showed that our research has shown the aspirational segment growing steadily since 2012 and 2013, since we've done this research. So what does this all mean for our work practically? BBMG and Globescan have teamed together to identify 5 human aspirations, the so what of all this research. And first off, abundance without waste. So, as you're designing your products and your services, this is really about an idea of more with less and trying to get beyond that scarcity mentality and understand that people are wanting experiences over material possessions more. Secondly, truly as you are. It's less about perfection now in people's interactions with brands and companies and more about honesty. And we're kind of in this era of hyper-transparency. Third, get closer. So moving from the transactional relationships with customers to engaging relationships. And relationships where normal people like you and I are providers of services or products. Things like Airbnb and other companies like that. Fourth is all of it. So rejection of binary choices and seeking basically balance and fluidity and redesign in our lives so that we can make things work for us rather than having to choose one or the other. And lastly, do some good. So our research has shown that people want this consistency of their values to permeate every part of their lives, their work, their everyday lives. And whenever that consistency is not there, it creates an imbalance and it creates inauthenticity, which people really struggle with. And so I wanted to give you an example of a company that I came across that I think is doing an amazing job in terms of hitting all 5 of these 5 human aspirations. And it's a company called Teng that was founded by 2 millennial aspirational women. And it sells basically high-tech, amazing, beautiful underwear for women while they're on their periods. And proceeds, I think, with every piece of underwear that they sell, it funds a pack of reusable cloth pads in Uganda to help get millions of girls back to school. And the company was named Time Magazine's 25 Best New Inventions of 2015. So they're definitely getting a lot of press, and it's a great product as well. I just ordered one. I'm super excited for it. So, this is an example of something that's reusable, practical, beautiful, empowering, and purposeful. And so I think it's just a wonderful example of something that if we understand an aspirational segmentation, aspirational population, rather than just something based on age, like millennials, we can really start to come up with solutions and products such as this, and encourage you all to do so. So thank you.